Thousands of years ago, Darkside Phil played video games on the internet. Many people consider this to be a mistake. Years and years later, he is still around. He is still streaming video games, and he has accumulated quite a bit of personal reputation debt. But more than that, he has acquired some of the most obnoxious, grating, annoying anti-fans in the entire universe that he simply maligns under this blanket term of detractors. Now, there are some people on my forum who would like me to make a distinction. You have people who are making fun of Phil like any other lolcow. Those are the detractors. But then there's a subcategory, an Untermensch of this group of people that are known by the detractors as the Dent Tractors, because DSP's fans are simply called the Dents, and they are called the Dents because some of his biggest pay pigs are people who literally have brain damage induced by trauma to the skull, and they have a dented skull. So DSP's income is mostly done by guilt-tripping literal dents into pay-pigging him endlessly every month after month for the worst content ever put out. Because quite frankly, his video game playthroughs are the worst things to sit through ever. He is a terrible, terrible, terrible entertainer. He is awful. And it's impossible. That's what's so shocking about his like dent tractors is like, how do you even have the time or mental fortitude to sit through this guy's boring ass streams to find shit to talk about? Because it's just the worst thing. Thankfully, DSP puts most of his entertaining bits in like the first 30 minutes. He does these pre-streams that can last up to 2 hours where he just does what I've repeatedly referred to as like his business meetings. Like the first 30 minutes of his stream are just cold open, like, hey guys, thanks for showing up. My finances are really if you can give me a bunch of money, I would appreciate it. And then he goes on like that for 30 fucking minutes instead of just plugging and going. He does this every stream, and that's where they get most of their content. Anyways, so they're just awful to deal with. They're literally the worst people to deal with on a regular basis. I loathe when DSP shit's happening because then I have to talk to these people, and they're just like the most aggravating cunts on the site, just in general. Anyways, PPP found this out firsthand. He started getting involved with DSP because he found a way to get DSP into his good graces, and he thought it would be really good for his show to have DSP do interviews and stuff, get more people watching him. PPP found out that the DSP people are truly the scum of the earth. not all of them. Let me remind you, when I speak I'm talking per capita, most annoying people to deal with, right? So not everybody, but a lot of them. And then PPP had this idea. He's going to gas this guy up. It is my genuine opinion, and I try not to take really obvious low blow shots at people most of the time. So when I say this, I really mean it. Darkside Phil is dumb. Darkside Phil is probably as dumb or dumber than like Chris Chan, because I feel like Chris Chan's ability to do problem solving, having dealt with Chris quite a bit, is as great or greater than Darkside Phil. The thing about Chris is that he's just so lazy, he never puts himself in situations where he has to solve any problems, whereas Darkside Phil is like he's like an adult trying to run a business and do a stream and keep a schedule, and this is a insurmountable challenge for him. And one of the things that is just really indicative to me that Darkside Phil is one of the dumbest people that we have a thread on the Kiwi farms. That's not like actually or has some kind of like mental condition outside of their control. Just like genuinely normal person, extreme low end of the IQ curve, is that when he has an issue, when something annoys him, he will rant for 10 to 15 minutes about how this like basic problem was such a problem for him. Like setting up Restream.io to simulcast to Kick and Twitch at the same time. He ranted for 5 to 10 minutes about how aggravating it was and how he did all this work and it was so difficult and so painful. And it's just like, this is something that anybody with any level of experience in streaming, never mind one of the longest running podcasters, video game players in the world. In the world, one of the first to start and the longest going of all time, should have no issue setting up Restream. Restream.io, all you do is you go to their site, you plug in the stream URL and stream keys exactly like you do with OBS, and then you change the one in your OBS to the Restream.io. That's it. It's 2 steps. It's anyone can figure this out, and he went on and on. So I'm just like, okay, you hit any kind of issue, and it is like a genuine world-shattering problem for you, where it takes you an hour to figure out basic tasks. And it's like, this is the kind of person that you need, that people make signs for, you know, that people put warning labels on products for. Like, you actually have to tell this how to wash his ass with. That's why there are instructions on soap, because it's like, if you don't put instructions on soap for this guy, he's going to take an hour to figure out why his ass doesn't smell good when he gets out of the shower. So dumb is what I'm saying. Dumb. And PPP has him on stream, and this is a really rare occurrence for you. For him, sorry. He is shy. He gets bullied so much, and his defense mechanism as a low IQ person who gets a lot of shit is that he just doesn't make appearances. Because if he did that, then he would put himself at risk. And sure enough, every single time he does take one of these ventures, it ends up backfiring on him. But that's what he does. So when he started making these appearances on PPP stream, PPP gassed him up hard. PPP would call him king, call him my liege. Like, he would do all these things that were like performative, and it's so obvious what he was doing. It was so obvious that he was trying to build up this guy's ego so he would do things. He sits on his ass doing the same thing year after year, and the dent tractors try to squeeze out whatever they can get from this dry, crystallized, rock hard stone that has been a stone for over half a decade, and they're still trying to wring that dry. And PPP finally has the opportunity and the smarts to try and build this guy up so that he actually has enough ego and enough self-confidence to go out and make mistakes again, which he would obviously do because he's dumb and he can't help it. If he attempts to do anything, he will fail at it, and it will be funny. So it's just so obvious what he's doing, but people were enraged with him, enraged with PPP, screaming at him, going on Twitter and seething at him, sending butthole pictures out, making fun of him. People on the forum were even angry, like, I hate hearing people compliment DSP. DSP is getting so many compliments from PPP, and I don't get any compliments at all. It's not fair. And it's just like the most dumb shit response as possible to what is the most obvious ruse cruise that has ever been undertaken. The maiden voyage of a ruse cruise so great that anyone across the planet could see what it was. And it was like, the dent tractors were still angry at him. And it's just like, just let it go. So over months, DSP is a recurring guest of the stream. They're trying to get him to do things. He goes on this limb and he talks to me. He doesn't talk to any of his detractors, but he talks to me. So PPP was so persuasive that he managed to get me and DSP to have a conversation for like an hour. And that's crazy, because it's hard to oversell just how much of a recluse hermit DSP is when it comes to interacting with other streamers. Then they try to get him to do XYZ, and they kind of realize at some point there's not so much you can do with Phil, because he is so dumb, and he's not very funny. If you get Chris Chan in a conversation with a normal person, like, it doesn't matter who it is, and this person just tries to talk to Chris will blurt out the most insane shit you've ever heard. And it's just like, it's so shocking that it makes you laugh, because laughter is a response of surprise. And that's what makes Chris so funny, is that he has in his head all these things that he cares about that only exist in his head. And because he has autism, he doesn't understand the theory of mind. And he doesn't understand what other people do and do not know, and what other people would and would not expect for him to say. So he'll reference something that makes absolute perfect sense to him, but it's just like this, what the fuck are you talking about thing. DSP is not that. DSP has theory of mind, but his mind is very small. So when he talks about small things. And it's just not good entertainment in the way that Chris is. So PPP hits the wall eventually, and he's like, okay, this guy sucks. And he was doing a thing that would annoy him where DSP, because they're trying to maintain a friendship with him, kind of, for the sake of the content. DSP would show up in their chat, and he would spam the same unfunny joke over and over. I actually remember PPP complaining about this to me, that DSP will show up in their chat, and he'll do this thing that DSP's biggest dent pay pig would do for him in his streams. The guy would spam the same joke over and over again until DSP was forced to read it. Darkside Phil would literally reproduce this in Kino Casino's chat and spam the same joke for literally like minutes at a time until PPP or Andy were like forced to acknowledge that he was doing this in the chat. So to give you an idea of what kind of IQ we're talking about here, and the level of desperation for approval and affirmation from the Kino Casino. And then I think it was around this point where PPP probably decided this is not worth it. So they're looking for an out, and they're looking for a way to kind of bake him. I gotta say, PPP is heartless in a way that I can't be. I never, even when I was interacting with Chris, I'm not trying to find a way to f this guy over, but from the beginning. So you have to watch your back around PPP chat. Don't ever get too comfy chat. But he was just very openly like, yeah, we're setting this idiot up to fail. And they're looking for an out for it. And it was over. I want to say that it started because PPP said something about Cat being fat. What it was, if I remember correctly, and I listened to like the entire 8-hour stream they did on Cat, but if I remember correctly, DSP backed out of a arrangement. PPP had set up this whole thing that he was going to do with Darkside Phil, and Darkside Phil at the last second backed out, and he used his bunny rabbit and his wife as an excuse at the same time. He said that his wife was like too fat to have kids, had ovarian issues. They're too old. Phil was like 40. I think Kat is only a couple years younger than him. And he was like, I want kids. I want a family, but we're too old now. So, and she has ovarian issues and she has medical issues and she became super religious, just trauma dumped on PPP of all people. Here's all the issues in my life. Here's the intimate sort of details of my personal relationships, the medical history of my spouse, and just like for no reason. Could just said, sorry, bro, something came up. I can't do it. But then he said, after this trauma dump about his wife and how sick she is, he then says that his bunny died. He has a secret bunny. Nobody knows about the secret bunny, but the secret bunny died. And the secret bunny was a replacement child. Told PPP that this bunny was a replacement child for a family that cannot have children, and said that's why I can't show up on your Tekken 7 stream or something. That was the excuse he came up to excuse not doing like a video game thing with Medicare or some shit. And it was just like completely unnecessary. And then at some point, PPP said that Kat was fat, and this upset Darkside Phil. And he's like, you can't say my wife was fat because you know that she has medical issues, and so you can't talk about her anymore. And PPP said no, and he kept calling her fat. So Darkside Phil then threatened to release their DMs together, which was to PPP's benefit, because I remember correctly, he didn't know how. PPP is technically inept, unless it's like sports or food or Jesus. Those are the things that he's very, very knowledgeable about. And also selling air conditioning units. If I remember correctly, he's a salesman who loves to eat, and he loves sports ball. He loves hockey. He loves wrestling, and he especially loves his Jesus. That's PPP in a nutshell, I feel like. And so he doesn't know how. My point is that he doesn't know how to export his DMs. Then Phil said, aha, I will export the DMs. Or no, I think he even threatened to release the DMs, but then he didn't have the means to do this. So then he was like afraid that DSP would just wipe out his history, but then DSP exported on his own and then posted them. And they just make him look like a idiot. And then And it's hard to play any clips of this because it's just like a long story where it's like and then it's like if you really want to go see an 8-hour long stream, you can watch the Kino Casino replay. I think they're even talking about it tonight. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that they're slated to stream after I finish, like in 6 p.m. If you know the time slot, throw it in chat because I don't know it off the top of my head. So if you want to watch that, they got something prepared for that. But yeah, then Phil decides that this is how he's going to get epic revenge. 7:30 p.m. There you go. So 7:30 Eastern time on it's Kino Casino Gaming on Kick. So one of their arch rivals is this guy called Review Tech USA, and I don't know anything about him except what I know from hearing it through them. If basically he's just this fat loser who used to review tech, but now he just gets stoned and pretends to do a politics show. And then he got caught with like bikini pictures of his stepdaughter or something that he only admitted to because Andy Worski made like a joke and for some reason he confirmed it. So he's also like a imbecile. And the big thing that I think got them even to start hating each other was that Review Tech USA is like the number one dent tractor. He is the number one enemy of Darkside Phil. And he, of all people, he puts his big, fat, greasy mitts on that crystallized stone rag and tries every night while high on edibles to squeeze out whatever he can get from the stone rag of Darkside Phil. And since they were doing the thing, in fact, Dickers is probably the reason why they started talking to Phil, is because of them making fun of Dickers. And then, very complicated, I know. Anyways, they hate each other. Darkside Phil hates Review Tech USA. Review Tech USA hates Kino Casino. So after the falling out with Kino Casino, Darkside Phil says, I know just the guy to join me on my crusade and to make it look like a epically owned PPP. So Darkside Phil, apropos of nothing, for no reason, literally no reason besides his fantasy revenge plot that concocted in the cockles of his own imagination, decides that he's going to invite over this guy who has hated him for 10 years and who has tried to make him content for 10 years just because he also coincidentally hates PPP. They get him on the show, and this guy is completely nonplussed. He's like, I don't believe you. I don't believe your story that you were the mastermind of anything. You didn't accomplish anything. This is embarrassing for you. Just doesn't believe him. And this is like a stone. And then Darkside Phil gets mad and just reads their DMs for like another hour. It's just like, it's just crazy. However, PPP says that he has a lot of information that's not in those DMs about the things that DSP said to him and the kind of groveling and patheticness. And that's what that's his comeuppance. He's going to say, okay, you want to try to go after me and try to say that you masterminded us to promote your own show, even though you haven't gained any viewers. Well, I have every embarrassing thing you've ever said chronicled in my journal. I have all the receipts because I've been recording this from the very beginning because obviously I was going to you at some point. And that's what they're streaming tonight. So that's the retelling, my retelling, as it is, always is. That's my retelling of the thing that happened. Really just speaks monuments not only to how dumb Darkside Phil is, but how dumb people are that hate him. We're just like, how do you not? It's PPP. What the do you think is going to happen? It's like the DSP is this little piglet and he's in this cage with like a giant Canadian brown bear. And it's like, there is only one possible outcome here. The brown bear may sit and eat honey and tolerate the presence of this little suckling piglet for hours even, but there is an inevitability. There is only one clandestine conclusion to this pairing. Okay. And that is the PPP thing. That's the full video where he's like talking to Dickers. And it's very long. It's 4.5. So I mean, the PPP stream was like 8 hours. I remember I started listening. I couldn't sleep that night, so I started listening like at the beginning of the night, and then I was listening all the way up until like 2 or 3 a.m. So it's like, okay, this is way too long. But I sat there faithfully playing Dota 2 and listening to PPP go, whoa, buddy. Fun. Awesome.